joined from our Lagos studio by the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, SDP, Mr. Adebayo. He joins us live this moment. Thank you so much, Mr. Adebayo, for joining us. This time I asked your friend, Mr. Moyele, where he belongs, and I'd like to ask you the same question. If the race has been described 3 or 4 horse race, where do you think you belong in the scheme of things? Do you have a chance?
Well, thank you. We are the only horse on the ballot. So I don't know the other paper horses, but ours is the only party with the white horse. So we are the only horse in the race, and I think we were going to win the race if we can do the hard work that remains in these few months left.
So I asked that question because not only in this climb, in other climbs, you see that the race is usually between 1 or 2 persons, and largely they go into the race and they share the large chunk of the votes. Now, if you look historically at how Nigerian elections have been conducted, especially at the presidential level, it's left us with 2 or a maximum of 3, sometimes 4 political parties. But if you calculate and look at it, the APC will say they are the ruling party. The PDP will say they are the biggest party in Nigeria, and they're the major opposition party. And you look at it, what is happening with NNPP and the Labour Party, they say that they have gained as much strength to challenge the APC and PDP in the race. And considering how these have panned out over the last few weeks, can Nigerians take your party seriously? And what do you bring to the table to make Nigerians consider you top in the scheme of things?
Okay, thank you. The first thing we need to do is to be serious-minded in the analysis. One, the historical elections we've been having, we all agreed, without exception, that they've been rigged. So you do not evaluate how good a student is if you found out that the examination has been leaked and people were cheating in the examination. So the student who got an A didn't get it on merit, and the person who got an F didn't mean that they didn't pass. So that is not in doubt. That has been judicially determined that the elections were rigged. INEC itself says now that the past elections were rigged and they are trying to use BFAS and other technology to try to stop the rigging. So let no person, no party boast about past achievements. That's number one. Number two, under this dispensation, we have just started campaigning. We still have majority of the campaign ahead. In other climes where they talk of front runner and all the rest of it, they usually do that well towards the end of the race. Secondly, they do not use it to determine who the press is going to talk to or who is going to participate in one debate or the other. That they use it to measure who is going to take the lead or the first question in the debate or something like that. Now, for us to be taken seriously, there are serious issues on the ground, and we are running to address those serious issues. The size of a political party, whether you have the largest members or you have been in government for long, is not going to determine whether you deserve to solve our problems. These parties that are big have no big ideas, and they have not solved any of the big problems that we are facing, be it poverty, insecurity, unemployment, infrastructure, nothing. You saw, just before I came on, I saw the apologia that Minister of Works, Fashola, is giving. He has 6 months to go. He's been there for 7.5 years. He's struggling with a 263-kilometer road between Kaduna and Abuja. I applied that road. It's a nightmare. It's not supposed to call a road. So if you can't solve these basic problems and you are throwing away these billions and trillions that belong to the Nigerian people, this is the reason why the Nigerian people will look at the SDP and say, what solution do they have? Nigeria is like a sick patient. And this patient has been kept in the hand of the most experienced doctors, the doctors who have spent the longest in the hospital. But the patient is not improving. The patient is getting worse. So it doesn't matter whether the doctor has spent 40 years as a doctor, is that this patient might die if we don't test other doctors. That is the reason why Nigerian people are looking our direction. They know that we are fresh,
all right. So let
we are new.
So let's go into some of your ideas. And I was asking that question because the issue of structure is very important in winning an election. You have to have people on the ground that will give you the kind of vote that you want. The SDP does not have any governor in any state. I'm not sure how many lawmakers you have at the federal level or at the state level. These are critical questions that will come up when your people are getting to the ground to canvass for vote.
Let me just give information. Let me just give information if you don't mind. One is that structure of a political party is different from having politicians who were rigged into offices. The structure of a political party is that at the polling unit level, at the ward level, at the local government level, at the state level, at the zonal level, at the national level, you have competent officers who are popular with the people and who take the work of your party seriously. That is what is called structure. Structure doesn't mean that you have some senators who were rigged into office, or you have godfathers or other people. No, the proper structure is that at any place in any part of Nigeria, however remote, even if it's in Focados or anywhere, if somebody wants to join your party or help your party, it has somebody local to them that they can go to. And in that respect, we are better than all the political parties in this country. You must have noticed our convention. We have 1,708 delegates from across the country in all the wards. So you cannot say so of PDP or APC, where I score more delegate votes coming from real people, coming from their communities, more than Atiku and Tinubu combined. So that we have structure. What we don't have are food riggers and money bags.
All right. So let's go into your manifesto. If you take a snapshot of what is perhaps referred to as a digest series of your manifesto. And of course, I like to read out to Nigerians to hear the priorities that you have set in your manifesto, which you've described: equity, stability, anti-poverty, empowerment, and development. Let's break down some of these issues that you have raised in your manifesto. First and foremost, let's go into the area of the equity and the social justice and equal rights for all. The question is, do you consider, I mean, that is number one in the summary of your manifesto. Do you consider these as the most priority? And perhaps what gives you the inkling that this is majorly the problem that Nigeria is confronted with today?
It's very clear because, number one, Nigeria is a country that is an oxymoron and a contradiction in itself. You have a country where 200 million people contribute resources together to take care of the health of one man, our president, overseas. But we neglect the health of majority of Nigerians. We have an education system where the Minister of Education uses Nigeria's money to send his children to school abroad. Then we close school for 8 years. You have a country in which our budget this year is going to about 20 trillion. Is spent for the welfare of 1%, and 99% are left behind. So we have a country where 80% of our crude oil is being stolen by less than 1% of 1% of 1% of a criminal elite that brought foreign people to come into the country and steal this crude. 2 days ago,
How do you address this, Mr. Adebayo? You have talked about inequality in the country,
yes,
but
yes.
How do you address it? And there is a growing feeling of disunity in the country. How do you tackle this?
How you tackle it is follow the mantra. remember, I started by saying I will run on truth and justice. First, you have to admit the truth. You have to agree that, one, it is unfair and unreasonable to steal all the resources of the people. You have to agree that it's unfair and unreasonable to have an 11 trillion deficit in a budget, whereas you have blown 16 trillion to give your friends tax waivers and other tax cuts and other things that are not legitimate. You have to agree with me that the majority of the money that the country has is spent on 1%. So this is how I'm going to tackle it. When I come in, all that stops. That's number one. Number two, you have to agree with me that it is unconstitutional to neglect Chapter 2 of our Constitution, which every president is obligated to take the oath of office and say, I'm going to implement. And they do take that oath of office, including the incumbent who is there now, but he did not comply with it. So when I come in there, your money will not depend on the manifesto of my party. The spending of your money and priority will depend on complying with Chapter 2 of the Constitution, which is that we spend money on the people, on social intervention. There will be no hungry man in Nigeria, or no hungry family. You will make sure that you give housing, adequate housing and conducive housing, proper habitat to the people. You will spend money on education, on healthcare, on infrastructure, before you start to do other extraneous or esoteric luxury for the few. Once that is in place, we have addressed the issue of equity. In the appointment of people.
So you mentioned something. Just a moment, please. Apologies, yes. Just a moment. You mentioned about the cost of governance in what you've said. You talked about tax holiday that is being given to some people. In that, I'm not sure that there is illegality in tax holiday or tax cut. What would be the criteria for you to stop that on one hand? But the question is, the National Assembly in Nigeria is regarded as being the highest paid lawmakers in the world. Would you do anything to that, for example? Do you think that those in government earn too much? What would you do? If you had a president, would you reject a salary? Would you cut down your wages? What would you do to cost of governance, which you have mentioned as part of your manifesto?
It's a magazine of things we need to do. Number one, don't get distracted by what they call cost of governance. Know that the cost of stealing is 100 times more than the cost of governance. What a senator takes as a salary is indecent, but that's not the only indecent or the most indecent. What they steal outside the book is even worse. So why do I need to start my quarrel with the chicken change? Let me start my real battle with ensuring that my government does not bring in people into our government who are agents of international crime gangs who come to steal our solid minerals, to steal our crude oil, to steal our gas, number one. Number two, that our critical state offices, the Central Bank, the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Trade, are not a pocket money for so-called billionaires who don't produce any productivity in the country. Three, that I don't allow people to steal majority of our income through fake claims on subsidy. Once you take care of that, you will have enough resources to now apply to areas now that we don't apply to, which means we will have money to see that every child who is born in Nigeria is guaranteed healthcare, guaranteed food, guaranteed housing, guaranteed education. And that once you are out of school, 5 or 6 jobs will be waiting for you. So it's not a question of people asking you, come and join custom, pay us bribe before you can join. Come and join immigration. 3,000 people apply. They're looking for only 300. And then people, no, you remove all that tension. You also build schools so that young children will not be competing at the age of 11 and start to know which state am I from, because they say, if I'm from so-so state, I cannot come in with this score. We will build in every federal constituency a federal school. Why are you calling it a federal constituency if there's no federal presence there? So these investments are not coming in now. And politicians and their friends in the media are explaining away that these things cannot be done. Why? They cannot be done because the money is not being recorded in the book. Once I come in, that stops. And how does it stop? It stops now. Because as we are running for office, we are not collecting the money of these people to do 3 advertisements within seconds. We are not collecting their money to fly on planes all over the country. We're not collecting their money to put 1 billion billboards all over the place. We're not collecting their money to use to borrow people to come and bribe people to come and do rally for us. We are running a clean campaign based on legitimate resources so that we don't get obligated to people who are blocking the government from working for the people. It's not because I hate billionaires.
Right. So, Mr. Adebayo,
it's just that I want to make the government work for you.
There's one interesting aspect. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. There's an aspect of your manifesto, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th aspect. We talked about, if you look at it, you can sum it up as economic agendas. Anti-poverty. You say special attention to reduce endemic poverty, improve care for the elderly. Are you talking about continuing with the trader money, the elders, money given to the elders in the society as being maintained by this government? You talk about empowerment. How much of Nigerians would you be empowering? How much jobs are you creating? You talk about economic growth, economic development of people's well-being. What do you mean exactly with this? How many jobs will you be creating, and from where would jobs be coming from?
First, let me make one clarification, and I think it's good for Nigerians to know. A manifesto belongs to a political party. It doesn't belong to a candidate. So people who are elected, even for governorship, for lower offices, are bound to implement the manifesto of the party. So what you are reading is the manifesto of the Social Democratic Party. Now, for Adebayo presidency, in compliance with that manifesto, we are having our policy programs and those things that we're going to do. That one will be launched shortly. It's called PPP, Policy, Plans, and Programs. So we will do that in compliance. And this manifesto you are reading is also in compliance with Chapter 2 of the Nigerian Constitution. This is how we do it. So just to make that very clear. Now, what we need to do is basically this. For employment, when I went to Washington in June, it's covered, I'm sure you have access to it, I discovered that if I am going to make anything to happen in terms of dealing a heavy blow on poverty, apart from government intervention, we must create jobs, because the surest way to get poverty kicked out is to ensure that people can get gainful employment. This empowerment, this intervention is meant for those who you cannot employ. You cannot see a vibrant young person, instead of giving them employment, you are giving them empowerment. It doesn't work. What you do is to give job for those who can do the job. For elderly, those who are retired, for other people who are sick, people who have no ability to work, those are the people you use other social methods. Now, the way to get the job out is this. I realize that if we are to rely on our expenditure, public expenditure alone, we cannot create enough jobs. What I did was to go to the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce, National Chamber of Commerce in the U.S., people who know me too well, whom I've worked with. I'm a board advisor on some of them, and I've gone around the world with them on job creation in many countries. I now told them that, look, you know, we have done this thing before in many countries. I've been your advisor, we've done all of this. In my country, I know the objective condition that I need to create for you to come to Nigeria and we can create jobs. We sat down together and we looked at it in various sectors, agro-allied sector, alternative energy sector, infrastructure sector, health and social services sector, new technology, such like, for example, blockchain and crypto technology. We discovered that we can create 3 million jobs times 10, 30 million jobs, using 2,000 companies, bringing production that they're already doing into Nigeria. So it's not that I'm going to now take government money to do them.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we need to leave it at that. We can't dig into all of the aspects of your manifesto, but I guess Nigerians are able to hear you tonight on some of the ideas that you have in becoming Nigeria's president, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you very much, and God bless Nigeria.
I appreciate it.